Rain hammered against the glass windows of the Kessington estate, like fists demanding entry. Inside the mansion, a man ran through marble hallways, his work boots echoing in the silence. Jamal was a cleaner, invisible to the world of wealth around him, but tonight he would become the only thing standing between life and death. He burst through a door and found her lying there, motionless, her skin pale as moonlight, her lips turning blue. Ariana Kessington, heiress to $1 billion empire, had no pulse. No one else was coming. The security cameras had gone dark 10 minutes ago. He had seconds to decide. Should he touch her? Risk everything? His job, his freedom, maybe even his life? Or should he let her die? His hands trembled as he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers, breathing life back into her lungs. Her fingers twitched, her chest rose, her eyes opened slowly, confused, terrified. And then she whispered 4 words that changed everything. Someone tried to kill me. The world would later ask one question. Why would a poor cleaner risk everything just to save the heiress of $1 billion empire? What happened next? Nobody expected. Why was Ariana Kessington alone that night in a mansion with over 50 rooms and 24-hour security? Why did the cameras shut down exactly 10 minutes before she collapsed? Who knew she would be in that wing of the estate at that exact moment? And why did Jamal, a man who cleaned floors for minimum wage, become the center of a scandal that would shake one of America's most powerful families? These are the questions that haunted investigators, journalists, and millions of people who followed this story. But beneath all those questions was something even more mysterious. What secret was Ariana hiding, even from her own blood? What did she know that made someone want her gone? And could a single act of courage from a stranger unravel a conspiracy years in the making? This is not just a story about survival. It's a story about power, betrayal, and the thin line between life and death. Stay close, because the truth is more shocking than you think. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button, like and share so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Jamal Thompson was 34 years old when his life changed forever. He came to America from Nigeria at 19 with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. He worked 3 jobs to put himself through community college. But life had other plans. His aunt, the woman who raised him after his mother died, fell ill with diabetes. The medical bills piled up faster than he could pay them. So he dropped out and took a job as a night shift cleaner at the Kessington estate, one of the largest private properties in Connecticut. The pay was decent, the hours were brutal, and the work was invisible. He scrubbed floors that no one looked at, polished silverware for dinners he would never attend, and emptied trash bins filled with things most people could never afford. But Jamal didn't complain. He sent half his paycheck back home to his younger siblings and saved the rest in a coffee tin under his bed. He had a dream, a small one, but it kept him going. He wanted to become a paramedic. He had watched his mother die because help came too late. He didn't want that to happen to anyone else. So he studied online, watched videos, read books from the library, and practiced CPR on a pillow in his tiny apartment. He didn't know it yet, but all of that preparation was about to save a life. Ariana Kessington was 28 years old and trapped. She was born into wealth most people couldn't even imagine. Private jets, yachts, galas, magazine covers, but she hated it. She hated the fake smiles, the shallow conversations, the constant pressure to be perfect. Her father, Richard Kessington, was a media mogul who controlled newspapers, television networks, and politicians. He built an empire, but he ruled his family like a king. And Ariana was his reluctant princess. She studied international development in secret, donated millions to causes her father would never approve of, and dreamed of a life where her name didn't come with expectations. But there was something else, something she hid from everyone. Ariana had a rare heart condition called arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. Her heart could stop without warning. She took medication every day, carried an emergency device, and lived with the knowledge that any moment could be her last. Her father knew, but he refused to let anyone else find out. Weakness, he said, was not allowed in their family. So she smiled for the cameras, attended the galas, and pretended everything was fine. But it wasn't. And 6 months before that night, her father made a decision that would seal her fate. He arranged her engagement to a man named Dominic Hale, a venture capitalist with political ambitions and a reputation for getting what he wanted. Ariana didn't love him. She barely knew him, but her father didn't care. The marriage was a merger, a strategic move to expand the Kensington empire. Ariana protested, but her father made it clear. If she refused, he would cut her off, declare her unfit to inherit, and take everything. She felt suffocated, controlled, trapped. And then, one night, everything came crashing down. It was a Thursday night in late October. The estate was quiet. Most of the staff had gone home. Ariana was in the East Wing, a part of the mansion she often retreated to when she needed to think. She had just taken her medication when she felt it. A tightness in her chest. A flutter that shouldn't be there. She reached for her emergency device, but her hands were shaking. The room started to spin. She tried to call for help, but her voice came out as a whisper. And then, everything went black. Jamal was 2 floors below, finishing his shift. He was about to leave when he heard a sound, faint, like something heavy hitting the floor. He paused, listened, then followed the sound. The hallways were dark. The lights in the East Wing had been dimmed. He called out, but no one answered. Then he saw her, lying on the floor, her body limp, her face pale. He dropped to his knees and checked for a pulse. Nothing. His mind raced. He pulled out his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The estate's internal network was down. He ran to the nearest security panel, but the cameras were offline. He screamed for help, but the mansion swallowed his voice. He was alone, and she was dying. Jamal's hands shook as he tilted her head back, checked her airway, and started chest compressions. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. He had practiced this 100 times, but never on a real person, never with this much at stake. Sweat dripped down his face. His arms burned. But he didn't stop. And then, after what felt like forever, she gasped. Her chest rose. Her eyes fluttered open. She stared at him, confused, terrified. And then she grabbed his shirt and pulled him close. Her voice was barely a whisper. Someone tried to kill me. Jamal didn't understand. He tried to calm her down, told her she had a medical episode, that she needed to go to a hospital. But she shook her head violently. No. Listen to me. Someone tampered with my medication. The cameras are off. The security system is down. This wasn't an accident. Before he could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway. The lights flickered back on. 2 security guards appeared, their faces stern, their hands on their radios. One of them looked at Jamal, then at Ariana, and his expression changed. Step away from her. Now. Jamal raised his hands. She collapsed. I was trying to help. The guard didn't believe him. We got an alert. Unauthorized personnel in a restricted area. You need to come with us. Ariana tried to speak, but her voice was too weak. They didn't listen to her. They pulled Jamal to his feet, cuffed his hands behind his back, and led him away. As he looked back, he saw Ariana reaching out, her lips forming words he couldn't hear. And in that moment, he realized something. He had just saved her life, but now, his own life was in danger. If this story already has your heart racing, comment, "I'm still watching." Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button, like and share, so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Jamal spent the next 6 hours in a windowless room, answering the same questions over and over. What were you doing in the East Wing? Why were you alone with Miss Kessington? Did you touch her? Why? The head of security, a man named Carter with cold eyes and a military background, didn't believe a word he said. You're telling me you just happened to be there when she collapsed? You just happened to know CPR? You just happened to save the richest woman in Connecticut? Jamal's voice was hoarse. I heard a noise. I went to check. She wasn't breathing. I did what anyone would do. Carter leaned forward. Except you're not just anyone. You're a cleaner. You have no business being in that wing. And now there are reports that you made inappropriate contact with Miss Kessington. Jamal's blood ran cold. I saved her life. Carter smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's not how the lawyers will see it. They released him at dawn with a warning. He was suspended pending an investigation. If Ariana didn't back up his story, he would be fired, and possibly arrested. Jamal went home, his mind spinning. He thought about his aunt, about the bills, about everything he stood to lose. But more than that, he thought about Ariana's words. Someone tried to kill me. 2 days later, Ariana showed up at his apartment. She was wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, looking over her shoulder like someone was following her. Jamal opened the door, stunned. You shouldn't be here. She pushed past him and closed the door. I know. But I had to see you. I had to thank you. And I had to warn you. She told him everything. Her father wanted to declare her mentally incompetent because of her heart condition. If he succeeded, he would gain full control of her trust fund, her inheritance, everything. Her engagement to Dominic was part of the plan. If she married him, Dominic would get access to her assets. If she refused, her father would have her declared unfit. Either way, she lost. But that wasn't the worst part. She had discovered that someone tampered with her medication the night she collapsed. The dosage was triple what it should have been, enough to stop her heart. And the security cameras didn't malfunction. They were turned off manually. From the inside, someone in the estate, someone she trusted, tried to kill her. And now, because Jamal saved her, he was a target too. Jamal sat down, trying to process everything. Why are you telling me this? Why not go to the police? Ariana shook her head. Because I don't know who I can trust. My father has lawyers, judges, politicians in his pocket. If I accuse someone without proof, I'll be the one who looks insane. I need evidence. And I need help. Jamal looked at her. This woman, who had everything, was just as trapped as he was, maybe more. He thought about walking away, about protecting himself, but then he thought about his mother, about the paramedic he wanted to become, about the oath he hadn't taken yet but already believed in, to help, to protect, to save. He took a deep breath. What do you need me to do? They started investigating together, carefully, quietly. Ariana used her access to review security logs. Jamal asked questions among the staff, people who trusted him because he was one of them. Slowly, they started to piece it together. The medication had been replaced 3 days before the incident. The security system was remotely disabled from a laptop registered to the estate's IT department. And there was a deleted video file, time-stamped 10 minutes before Ariana collapsed. But the biggest clue came from an unexpected source. One of the housekeepers, an older woman named Rosalind who had worked for the Kessingtons for 20 years, pulled Jamal aside one evening. She looked nervous, scared even. "I saw something that night. I didn't think it mattered, but now I'm not so sure." Jamal leaned in. "What did you see?" Rosalind hesitated, then whispered, "I saw Mr. Hale, Dominic. He was in the East Wing that evening, about 30 minutes before you found Miss Ariana. He was carrying something, a small case. I thought it was strange, because he's not supposed to be in that part of the house. But I didn't say anything." "You don't question people like him." Jamal felt his stomach drop. Dominic, Ariana's fiancé. The man who stood to gain everything if she died or was declared incompetent. He told Ariana immediately. She went pale. "I knew he didn't love me, but I didn't think he would actually try to kill me." But there was still a missing piece. Dominic didn't have access to the security system. He couldn't have turned off the cameras himself, which meant someone else was involved, someone on the inside. And Jamal had a sinking feeling he knew who it was. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button, like and share so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The person who helped Dominic was someone Jamal trusted, someone who had been kind to him since his first day at the estate. Marcus, the assistant head of security. Marcus was in his 40s, former military, competent and reliable. He had trained Jamal on the estate's emergency procedures, had recommended him for a raise, had even lent him money once when his aunt's medical bills were overdue. Jamal didn't want to believe it. But when he checked the security logs again with Ariana, Marcus's credentials were used to disable the cameras that night. His laptop was the one that deleted the video file. And according to Rosalind, Marcus had been seen talking to Dominic multiple times in the weeks leading up to the incident. Ariana's hands trembled as she stared at the evidence. Why would he do this? What did Dominic offer him? Jamal thought back to a conversation he had with Marcus months ago. Marcus had mentioned his daughter, how she needed surgery they couldn't afford, how insurance wouldn't cover it. He had been desperate, and desperate people make deals they wouldn't normally make. Jamal felt sick. Marcus wasn't evil. He was just a father trying to save his child. But that didn't change what he had done. They needed proof. Something concrete they could take to the authorities. Something even Richard Kessington's lawyers couldn't bury. Ariana had an idea. Her inheritance hearing was scheduled for 2 days from now. If they could get Marcus or Dominic to confess on record before then, they could stop everything. But it was risky. If they tipped their hand too early, both men would disappear. And Ariana might not survive a second attempt. Ariana decided to confront Dominic directly. She arranged a private meeting at the estate, in the same room where she had collapsed. Jamal hid nearby with a recording device Ariana had bought. It was old-fashioned, untraceable, and legal as long as one party consented. She was that party. Dominic arrived exactly on time, dressed in an expensive suit, his smile charming and cold. "Ariana, darling, you wanted to see me." She didn't waste time. "I know what you did, Dominic. I know you tried to kill me." His smile didn't falter. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" She stepped closer. "I have enough. I know you tampered with my medication. I know you paid Marcus to turn off the cameras. I know everything." For a moment, Dominic said nothing. Then he laughed, a low, bitter sound. "You think you're so smart. You think you're untouchable because of your name. But you're not. You're weak, Ariana. You're sick, and you're in the way." Ariana's voice didn't shake. "In the way of what?" Dominic's expression turned cold. "Your father's plan. Our plan. You were supposed to die quietly. A tragic accident. A heart condition that finally caught up with you. And I would have been the grieving fiancé, the loyal partner who inherited everything you left behind. But you had to survive. And now you've made everything complicated. Ariana felt her chest tighten, but she kept her voice steady. Why? Why would my father want me dead? Dominic smiled. He doesn't. He just wants you gone, declared incompetent, locked away in some private facility where you can't embarrass him. But I convinced him there was a better way, cleaner, permanent, and he agreed. Because at the end of the day, you're just an asset to him. And assets can be liquidated. The recording device captured every word. But the confession wasn't over. Ariana pushed further. And Marcus? What did you promise him? Dominic shrugged. Money. Enough to save his daughter. He didn't ask questions. He just did what I told him. Turned off the cameras. Deleted the files. He thought he was helping me propose to you privately. He had no idea what I was really planning. Ariana's voice broke. You're a monster. Dominic stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. No, I'm a realist. And if you try to use whatever evidence you think you have, I'll make sure you disappear for good. Do you understand me? Before Ariana could respond, the door burst open. Jamal stepped out with the recording device, and behind him, 2 police detectives Ariana had contacted in secret. Dominic's face went white. He lunged toward Ariana, but the detectives grabbed him before he could reach her. He struggled, shouting threats, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but the recording didn't lie, and when they brought Marcus in for questioning, he broke down and confessed everything. He hadn't known Dominic planned to kill Ariana. He thought he was just helping with a surprise. But when he realized what had happened, he was too scared to come forward. He thought Dominic would hurt his daughter. The truth came out slowly, painfully. Richard Kessington hadn't directly ordered Ariana's death, but he had created the conditions that made it possible. He had pressured her into the engagement, ignored her illness, and prioritized his empire over his daughter's life. When confronted with the evidence, he didn't apologize. He hired lawyers, but this time, Ariana was ready. The inheritance hearing became a media spectacle. Ariana presented the recordings, the evidence, and her testimony. Dominic was arrested and charged with attempted murder and conspiracy. Marcus cooperated with authorities and received a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony. Richard Kessington's reputation was destroyed. Several of his business partners distanced themselves, and his media empire began to crumble. But more importantly, Ariana won. The court ruled in her favor. She retained full control of her inheritance and her life. For the first time in years, she was free. But the victory came with a cost. Her relationship with her father was over. He never apologized, never admitted he was wrong. He simply disappeared from her life, retreating to one of his international properties, bitter and alone. Ariana grieved, not for the man he was, but for the father he could have been. But she didn't let it break her. She used her freedom to build the life she always wanted. She stepped away from the public eye, focused on her philanthropy, and created a foundation to help people with heart conditions get the care they needed. And she made sure that Jamal was part of that new chapter. She offered him a reward, a substantial one, enough to change his life forever. But Jamal refused. He didn't want money. He wanted something more valuable. I want a chance, he told her. A chance to study. A chance to become the paramedic I always dreamed of. That's all I've ever wanted. Ariana smiled, tears in her eyes. Then let's make it happen. She paid for his education, all of it. Tuition, books, living expenses. She made sure he didn't have to work while he studied, so he could focus entirely on his dream. And 2 years later, Jamal graduated top of his class. He became a paramedic, just like he always wanted. He saved lives, just like he saved hers. Ariana attended his graduation, sitting in the back row, clapping louder than anyone else. Afterward, they talked for hours, catching up, laughing, remembering that terrifying night that changed everything. People often asked if they ended up together, if the story had a romantic ending. The truth was more complicated. They cared about each other deeply, but their connection was built on something stronger than romance. It was built on trust, respect, and the shared knowledge that they had survived something most people couldn't imagine. They remained close friends. Ariana called him whenever she needed advice. Jamal visited her whenever he was in town, and sometimes, late at night, they would sit together in silence, grateful to be alive, grateful to have found each other in the chaos. Because sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't about passion or romance. They're about two people who saw the best in each other, when the world saw nothing at all. And sometimes, the kiss that saves a life becomes the beginning of a destiny none of us could have predicted. So let me ask you something. What would you have done if you were Jamal? Would you have risked everything to save someone you didn't know? Someone whose world was so different from yours? Or would you have walked away, protected yourself, and let fate decide? Think about it honestly, because it's easy to say we would do the right thing when we're watching from a distance. But in that moment, with everything on the line, would you really? And what about Ariana? Do you think she made the right choice, cutting her father out of her life? Or should she have tried to forgive him, to rebuild what was broken? Family is complicated, betrayal is complicated, and sometimes there are no easy answers. Here's another question. Do you believe their meeting was fate, or just coincidence? Was Jamal meant to be there that night, or was it just random chance? Some people believe everything happens for a reason. Others believe we create our own meaning from the chaos. What do you believe? And finally, should Ariana and Jamal end up together in the future? Or is their friendship more powerful because it's not romantic? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Because these stories aren't just about the people in them. They're about us. About the choices we make. About the kind of people we want to be. If this story touched you, if it made you think, if it made you feel something real, then do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss another story like this. And remember, the most powerful moments in life often come from the people we least expect. Sometimes, a stranger's courage changes everything. And sometimes, the hand that saves you belongs to someone the world forgot. Thank you for watching. And if you want to hear another story that will stay with you long after it ends, wait until you hear about the village boy who discovered a secret buried for 600 years. That's coming next. Until then, take care of each other. And never underestimate the power of a single act of kindness.